Welcome to the Snap UK Week 17 edition. We're going to split them this week, so we're going to do an AFC and an NFC episode. So we're going to start with the AFC. This week, I'm joined by Jim, Griff, and Gilo. 4 Foot Inches is busy. I don't know what doing because of course we're actually in proper lockdown now over here. So we one day we'd like to meet up again and do this in person. But whilst we're in this, we're still doing it via Skype.
Not holding out much hope.
No. I'm hoping for the 2023 season we're back talking to each other in person. Of course, it means we're going to be locked down for the Super Bowl, so we'll have to watch that over Zoom. If you want to be chatting with anyone, which I'm sure will be incredibly popular in our households. Anyway, Black Monday's been and gone. Some head coaches have left, but we'll discuss them as we go through, because otherwise we'll just we'll have a possibility of just going over the same things over and over again. So let's start with in the AFC. Let's start with the 12-4 Steelers at the 11-5 Browns. 22 to Steelers, 24 to the Browns. The Browns make the playoffs for the first time since
2002.
Nice. The longest streak in is it American sports?
I believe so, yeah.
With the current longest active streak in American sports, yeah.
Yeah, a lot obviously longest in the NFL. And despite the fact that Mason Rudolph played, the Browns got there in the end, but it was tight, wasn't it? watching Baker have to scramble for that first down at the end.
Yeah.
Was,
I've never really wanted to be a Browns fan because they've been generally pretty terrible in forever. But on Sunday night, I definitely didn't want to be a Browns fan because that would have been excruciating to watch. And I've sat through my team losing in 2 Super Bowls. They looked comfortable, like pretty much for the first 3 quarters. Didn't put their foot down the accelerator, but they certainly didn't look uncomfortable. And then the 4th quarter happened. Mason Rudolph seemed to find some sort of form. The Browns seemed to fall off the edge of a cliff. And suddenly it was a game, and the Steelers were very close to upsetting the odds on this one. Well, I don't know if they would have upset the odds, but given the team they had out on the field, it came very close to the Steelers win. An absolute heartbreak for the Browns, but thankfully they managed to fall over themselves and they fell into the playoffs. So
it was a missed 2-point conversion, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
That saved them. The surprising and best thing about this is they now play again next week in the wild card. The difference here is that Cleveland get back 6 defensive players that couldn't play because of COVID, including Denzel Ward, and the Steelers get back their entire first team on both sides of the ball. So I don't know whether the Browns are glad they made the playoffs, but it was nice to see them come. You know, that's 3 years since the 0-16 season, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's a good turnaround. I think credit has to be given where credit's due. It's not been a smooth ride to where they are now from that year. They're on their 3rd head coach, of course, but you know they've eventually got there. I think Stefanski has done a really good job, and if it wasn't for coaches, it's like Ron Rivera, who's probably going to win Coach of the Year, I'd say Stefanski would have been a good shout for Coach of the Year, because there have been times where the Browns have looked really, really good this year. There have been times where they've looked very, very Browns as well. So we'll try and forget those and focus on the positives. So I think this year they kind of lived up to that billing they had a couple of years back, where it's like, they're going to the Super Bowl, they've got all this talent. This year they've settled down. I think, Gary's made this point over a couple of weeks. Not having Odell Beckham, I think, has actually helped. I don't think they don't focus. He's not a focal point, and they're getting more out of some of the wide receivers who don't get that kind of that limelight. Kind of, I think, both Donovan Peoples-Jones and Cardrell Hodge have played really well. They've stepped in. Jarvis Landry's still a good wide receiver, and they're making more out of some of their tight ends as well, who are also Juco and Hooper are quality players. So I agree with what Gary's been spouting. I like Odell Beckham still as a wide receiver, but it's obviously not having him has been a benefit to this team.
Yeah. Stefanski he's got the best record of any debut season as a Browns coach.
Yeah,
11 wins. So,
and he's been brilliant. The problem they've got now is he's got COVID and can't coach in the playoff game, and that is possibly the most Browns outcome for your first playoff appearance in 18 years. We shouldn't laugh, but it's quite funny.
It's not funny he's got COVID. The situation is mildly amusing.
Yeah.
Just to clear that up.
Anyone want to tell me how old Baker Mayfield was the last time the Browns made the playoffs?
4?
2 or 3?
7. He was 7, but still. And Kelly Clarkson had just won American Idol, the first ever winner. That's how long ago this was. Like, I know, she's still terrible, but...
she's got a banger of a Christmas song.
Surely the point here is Mason Rudolph was getting enough done with the second stringers to spook the Browns. They go into wildcard weekend. I know we're saving our predictions for the end, but I can't see anyone who can look at this Browns team and say they've got enough to actually go deep in the playoffs.
No.
Say the second stringers, we're still throwing at Juju, Claypool, Deontay Johnson. That is the same people that Big Ben's throwing at.
Who are the best 3 players for the Steelers?
It's the
TJ Watt.
But yeah.
TJ Watt wasn't there.
Minka
Ben
Fitzpatrick, I thought,
wasn't there.
Minka was.
Minka was there. He had a good game.
But yeah.
Browns haven't got enough. But that said, I was really pleased for them. It's a nice thing to see. I don't think I was watching American sports when they were last any good. So it was a good matchup, but it worries me that it's the same matchup again. It seems almost unfair on Cleveland to have to play them 2 weeks running.
It does. I think they desperately need some. You mentioned that some of the backfield defenders need to come back next week. Like Denzel Ward was out. I think they look a completely different team when Denzel Ward's not playing. He's not had a great season, but he is the best cornerback that they've got. And they need. Myles Garrett's been really quiet over the last few weeks. Is he actually playing? But they need him to kind of step up and do what he was doing in the first half of the season.
He's been injured, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just coming back from an injury.
They've lost Olivier Vernon, which is a huge loss because if you're asking Myles Garrett to kind of do the things he was doing at the start of the season, he needs a running mate. He needs someone else to take pressure away from him. So I think, we're going to do predictions like you say, but it's a real tough ask next week for them.
The only way the Browns win that game is if they can dominate with the run game. That's the only way they win that game.
Yeah, if they can get out the lead with the run game, then yeah. Here's the thing, Baker. Do you think Baker gets not enough credit or too much credit?
Too much.
You think too much?
I don't think enough.
I don't think enough.
This season, he's been much better this season. He's had some... I saw a stat line a couple of days ago, and it actually really impressed me. And I can't remember what it is, but he's been good this season. Yeah, I know. It was comparing him alongside Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck as rookies in their first 3 years to throw as many yards as he is. But hang on, I'm going to dig this out.
But he's been, we know he set the rookie touchdown record a couple of years ago, which is now gone. But I think last year he took a big step backwards, and this year he's leapt forwards again. More importantly, he is the first Browns quarterback since a man called Brian Sipe to start each game of a season in consecutive years. That guy played 78 to 81. That is how long it's been since they've had consistent quarterback play in Cleveland. And that is key because your team will always be better if the team knows the man under center.
Right, I've got that stat now. He is the only quarterback alongside Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck to throw for 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns in each of his first 3 seasons.
Yeah, but Peyton Manning did that when you weren't throwing for 4,500 yards as a regular thing. Yep. 3,500 yards these days is a pretty mediocre season.
Yeah, but still, he's done it. And there's no,
well, that's a great mediocre stat.
Well, there's no other rookie quarterback
why
recent history who's done it.
Because he properly sort of tears people down the middle over what they think. What do you reckon, John?
He's polarizing, isn't he? I think he gets too much stick from the people who hate him, and the people who love him, compare him to, put him in stats, comparing him to Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck.
I don't hate him. I just think if you've got a career ratio of 75 touchdowns to 43 interceptions, you're not the Messiah.
Yeah, but
no.
But
he's not a very naughty boy, though.
But he is doing the job for Cleveland.
Yeah.
And
that's key. That's not an easy job. We've seen a lot of people come and go and fail massively, and he's doing the job. So I just feel
the consistency is the key as well, because he was playing behind a garbage O-line, and how many, for the whole of last year, it was awful. And some other quarterbacks are using that. We're giving them a free rein because they've had a bad year, but the O-line's rubbish. Well, it was rubbish for him last year. We said this is a make or break year for Baker, and he's got a team that is steeped in shit to the playoffs. Quite frankly, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it, but there's just no other way to put it. They have been the hallmark of shittiness for 10 years now, and they're now
18 years probably.
Yeah, but they are now in the playoffs, and that is great.
What an accolade! What an accolade!
Yeah, look at the teams that missed out this year, and the Browns haven't. They have made it. Yeah. Well, because they're playing again on the weekend, we'll come back to Steelers Browns going forward. But of course, Dolphins Bills was
one-sided, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah,
yes. It was disappointing because actually after the second half of the season, I really wanted the Dolphins to get into the playoffs, and to go out in limp fashion as they did. It was harsh, but it's a learning curve for Tua. I get the feeling if Fitz would have been fit, he'd have been thrown in, wouldn't he? They didn't have anyone else.
I think I was waiting for a lot of talk about Tua.
I am as well,
but they conceded 56 points.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure why we're talking about the quarterback.
No, I don't. I mean, I agree with what John's saying. Fitzmagic would have played in relief as he had done in other weeks had he been available. But Tua completed. He threw 58 passes. I mean, that's a lot for a rookie, and he completed 35 of them, 361 yards. He had a touchdown. He also got picked off 3 times by an excellent Miami defense. You can't throw every rookie out there and expect them to be Justin Herbert. He's just taking time to develop, but he's still going to be a good player. But this Bills team is possibly the most on-form team in the AFC right now, and they put up nearly 60 points against a defence that had conceded, 24 as an average?
Wasn't the first drive an interception by Byron Jones?
Yeah.
And, of course, it did not bother Josh Allen. He just came back and he kept throwing.
That's experience for him. And Buffalo scored, I think, 4 touchdowns in the second quarter alone.
Yeah.
And experience will show you that Josh Allen's had that experience of being intercepted a number of times in his first couple of years, and he knows to put it behind him and carry on. But you touched on it there, Griff. The Bills are the form team. Like over their last 3 games, they've outscored their opponents 142-54. With an average margin of victory of 29.3. And they've played the 49ers, the Patriots, and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
They're okay. Patriots and the 49ers haven't had good seasons, but they're not the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Falcons. This Bills team is playing unbelievably well at the moment. They've won 6 games in a row, and they're just playing with an air of confidence.
Their defense, I think at the start of the season, a few of us kind of said, look, their offense looks great, but their defense doesn't seem the same as it was a couple of years ago. In the last 4 to 6 weeks, the defense has just got better and better and better.
They're surrendering a lot of yards, but not a lot of points.
Yeah, but do you know who they remind me of? the Chiefs of last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The defense is getting better and better, as Gary says, and it's just reminding me of the Chiefs of last year. And we have our little Thursday show, me, Paul, and Griff, and Paul for weeks has been going, and still is saying, I think the Bills are my quiet, sneaky tip for the Super Bowl. And quite frankly, why they are quiet or sneaky tip for the Super Bowl still, I do not know. They're
definitely not at the moment.
They are a brilliant side.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
They're entertaining to watch. I think the one area where they're not as good is the running game. But when you've got Josh Allen and the defense and the special teams, I scored a special teams touchdown as well, playing like they are.
Isaiah McKenzie, he should get credit for 3 touchdowns in this game, including that punt return, which was incredible.
Yeah. So when other assets of the team are playing it well, and don't get me wrong, the running game, it's not terrible. It's just not very good.
It's average.
It's average, yeah. So when all things are ticking, right, you struggle to think that how anyone can beat this team. Saying that, we've said that about the Ravens the last couple of years, and they got into playoffs and lost in the first game. So stranger things have happened.
It'd be interesting to see next week if Josh Allen gets picked off again, and like the playoff yips happen, because of course he had that game last year against was it the Texans?
Yeah.
Psychology is a huge thing. I hope not, because I really like Josh Allen. I think the Bills are my pick.
Yeah, if you hadn't had that, like the Bills and Josh Allen and the Bills had a slump kind of mid-season where I think they went 3-3 through 6 games, and after that, culminating in that loss to Arizona with the Hail Murray. I think if it hadn't been for that, we'd be talking about Josh Allen in the same breath as we were Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes for MVP. Because if you look at it in the last 6 or so games, he's definitely up there.
Yeah. He's outplayed Russell Wilson the second half of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an impressive thing to say. It helps as well that the Bills, this is the first time they've swept the division in team history. And they've also found a new kicker, Tyler Bass, who's scored the most points ever by a Bills player in a single season. They just don't have that big a weakness anywhere. They're a bend, don't break defense, and the offense just puts points on everyone. So I can't find a lot wrong with them as a team. 501 points they scored this season, which is also the most in a single season by the Bills.
I'd like the running game to be slightly better if things get tight in the playoffs.
Yeah,
because they've got a number of people in the committee, but they haven't got Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. I know they've got Josh Allen, but he can't do it all every week.
Fair, but it does feel a bit like we're nitpicking to find a weakness rather than it's a glaring weakness. It's just doing enough, and like John said, it does look like last year's Chiefs.
Yeah.
And you think about it, what was the weakness of last year's Chiefs?
The running game.
It was their running game, and they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl with 2 running touchdowns. So, it's
Before we move on, can we just make mention of the fact that Brian Flores has done a brilliant job with the Dolphins up until this game? Everything he's done has been a vast improvement of how this team is run. Mike Gesicki, most touchdowns by a tight end in a single season in franchise history, which tells you how low the bar was, because I think he had 6. But they've turned everything around. Parker's getting 100-yard games every other week. And the Tua thing will come good. I think he's progressing. It's just this was too big a stage.
Yeah, I mean, we said it for the Bills, the running game. The Dolphins need a running game. And I know they were chasing the game for a lot of this game, and you do that through the passing game. But you need a feature back in this team that Tua can kind of lean on to help him in that backfield. So I think most quarterbacks would struggle when they're not being able to run the game, run the ball as much as they'd like to. I think Salvin Ahmed and Myles Gaskin have done okay, but they're not feature backs. I think the Dolphins have got a really good opportunity going into the draft to, either trade down for more picks. I don't think they are going to pick a quarterback. They've got the 3rd pick of the draft, courtesy of Bill O'Brien. So they could look at a quarterback if they aren't convinced by Tua. But they could just use that to trade down for a quarterback-needy team and then pick up a lot of draft capital.
They'd be wasting the pick, taking another
I think
quarterback.
so, yeah.
It's at least a year too early to judge Tua.
Yeah.
And what they need at a quarterback is someone, because you have mentioned that Fitzmagic may well retire. If he does, they need another veteran sitting behind Tua to coach him along. He clearly benefits from that relationship. Some players don't. Sorry?
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, make sure you bring him back. Yeah, absolutely.
Griff meant to say good veteran.
I'm just saying that clearly you can see Tua does like that. Some quarterbacks don't like that process. He clearly does. I think they'd be nuts to let Fitzmagic go. I think they need to offer him the money to stay because the relationship is so good and it builds your quarterback room for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd be trying to convince him to stay. He needs that. Unfortunately, it'd be great if every young rookie had that type of crutch. I think, Sam Darnold, when Sam Darnold drafted by the Jets should have gone out there to keep Josh McCown because he's a similar type of player where he knows his role in the team, but he's got so much experience both playing as a starter but also as a backup that any young quarterback is just going to soak that up and get the benefit of it. And that's exactly what Tua's been doing with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And when times are tough, it means the Dolphins can take Tua out of the firing line. And he's going to get stick for it. But, he's a young quarterback. Not all quarterbacks are brilliant in their first season. And most quarterbacks who are brilliant in their first season have a massive second-year slump because teams find them out. I think Tua, coming off the injury he had at Alabama, didn't have an off-season. Wasn't 100% fit when he entered the draft. Getting used to a whole new team, whole new surroundings, whole new game plan. Let's give the guy a break.
Enough said.
Moves on, John.
Well, so with the Dolphins slipping up, that left space for Titans and Colts. So the Titans beat the Texans 41-38.
Yeah, this was a lot tighter than it should have been. This is, and again, we'll come to it when we do our predictions, but this is the problem the Titans have got. They just allowed 38 points to the Houston Texans, who've been hot garbage, I believe is the phrase. Season. They finished the year 4-12. They can't stop the run, which we saw. Derrick Henry past the 2,000-yard mark. Is he also not only is he the 8th person ever to 2 consecutive years as the lead rusher in the league? Like, he ended with 254 yards or something. It was insane.
250 on the dot.
And he did it at more or less a canter. The Texans couldn't stop him. You got the feeling he could have had another 30 yards at any point.
It wasn't. I mean, he had a long of 52, but it wasn't like he was breaking off, 2 or 3 of those. A lot of them were like 10, 12 yards. Yeah. The Texans just couldn't cope with it. And we've said it before, I feel massively sorry for Deshaun Watson and his team. And actually, JJ Watt's also come out and said he feels sorry for Deshaun Watson and has apologised to him for the performance of the team. Because you look at all the quarterback stats for this year, and Deshaun Watson is in the top 5. I was going to say top 10, but I think top 5 for most of them.
4,823 passing yards, and most by any Texans quarterback. And he's just 4-12.
It's the pass leader for the season, isn't it?
Led the league.
Yeah, absolutely madness.
It's by having no one to throw to for the last 6 weeks.
If your best and most consistent receiver is Brandon Cooks, that says a lot about your team. Because he's been good this year, to be fair, but they needed him because they sabotaged themselves.
Because Will Fuller takes drugs.
And apparently Will Fuller does take drugs. We should concentrate on the Titans, the fact that they also won the division for the first time since 2008, which I couldn't believe was a thing. But, that Ryan Tannehill, he would be next in line behind Watson if you didn't have the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. He's been brilliant. They've got the best running back in the league at the moment. They just don't have a defense. They just don't have a defense.
They've probably got the best offense in the league at the moment. One of the best, certainly, with Tannehill, Henry, and AJ Brown. It's powerful. Like Corey Davis had something like 994 yards this year.
17 yards short, I think, of a 1,000 season.
And he's quietly gone about doing his business. Johnny Smith's been brilliant this year. Had a bit of a quiet game, but I think this proves that you need to have a defense to win, or at least a mediocre defense. Because there's teams like like Chicago, who've got a good defense. They're in the playoffs, all right, in a bad NFC team. The Bills have got a great offense, but they've got a good defense as well. The Chiefs, famed for their offense, but actually their defense is sneakily good as well. Teams like the Titans and the Seahawks, I think, could come up a cropper in the first round of the playoffs, just because they can't defend. You can't, if you're giving up 38 points against the Texans, what the hell are you going to do against the Ravens on the form they're on at the moment?
Yeah, it's true. It's got to be a concern for Vrabel. He looked like a man lost at the weekend. Like, he could not believe that this game. Let's not forget, this game was overtime. If not for a Sam Sloman field goal that dinked in off the post. How many do you see that go in off the post? Virtually none. Yeah. They almost always arc away, hit the outside and go away. And this one clipped the inside and went in. And half the team weren't celebrating because they thought it had dropped out. It's too much to ask. Although Sloman actually has looked every bit as good as Gostkowski, if not better. And whether or not the veteran comes back to the playoffs, I don't know.
I don't think you would you? I mean, like you say, he's not missing big kicks, and Gostkowski this year has been missing big kicks. All right, he went very close on Sunday, but he got it. So
yeah, he did. This was a great result for Tennessee, and I really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. But this is not. They're not as good as they were last year in terms of balance, and they didn't. I don't think they can go as deep. That's the point.
Yeah, completely agree.
Who's their game against this weekend?
They don't have a game this weekend. Are they on the bye? Titans?
Tennessee?
No, Titans.
They're playing the Ravens.
They're playing the Ravens, yeah.
Sorry, yes.
And it just seems like a bad time to play the Ravens
out. They knocked the Ravens out in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
And it's
they beat them earlier this season as well, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They started the slide. They started the Baltimore slide. So it's a revenge game for the Ravens.
I hope. Since Tannehill come in, the Titans have scored on average over 30 points.
Yeah.
So they are like
shoot out. It's going to be an amazing game.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Keegan's Newcastle. It's amazing.
One more thing before you move on. Brandon Cooks has joined one other player as the only pair with 1,000-yard receiving seasons for 4 different teams. Who is the other wide receiver?
Randy Moss?
Nope.
TJ Owens?
Nope.
Something of wide receivers have been on a lot of teams.
Bolden. Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, that was a good shout.
That was a good shout. Recently retired, last couple of years. Played for the Bears, the Eagles.
No. I was thinking Brandon Marshall.
It is Brandon Marshall.
Oh. He didn't play for the Seahawks, did he?
I said the Eagles.
Oh, I thought he said Seahawks.
No. But so they're the only 2. That's quite an accolade because Brandon Cooks gets a lot of stick for getting knocked out in the Super Bowl and pretty much every other time he's been. He hasn't been hurt this season. He's been really good for them.
When he's fit, he's always been a good player. It's just the fact that you can't keep the guy, conscious.
Plus he catches like 12 passes a year for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he does always seem to catch them miles down the field. This is a big job for whoever takes over from Romeo Crennel. I don't think it will be Crennel who's the coach next season at the Texans.
No, I don't think it will.
No.
This is such a tough job.
They've got no first-round pick.
They've got no second-round pick.
Got no second-round pick. Got no talent, basically, on the defense. This is a big job. It requires a long contract and stability in order to get this team right.
Yeah,
and the
Crennel
problem
was
I have
interviewed at the weekend, wasn't he?
Yeah, Romeo. They've interviewed Marvin Lewis as well. A few others.
He would be an exciting pick, but he might be the best thing in terms of give him 5 years.
Yeah. But the thing that worries me more about this is it's not the head coach or the GM position. It's like the amount of people that are going to be interviewing him. And it's the whole structure of the Texans as an organization. I think we mentioned it maybe we haven't. Maybe I've been speaking about it. But when you have one owner and one GM and one coach, things tend to work well, or a minimum of that. Things tend to work well. When you've got other people like the vice president of personnel, Jack Easterby, involved in it, they've hired a consulting firm, I believe, to also help out. Who'll have a big say in it. It reeks of the Browns in their I was about to say heyday, but low day, who just couldn't make up their mind what they wanted to do. And that's, for me, that's kind of the biggest issue, is that there's not one deciding voice as to where this organisation's going.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think Jack Easterby is a bit of a cancer, if I'm honest. I don't think he's anything good for this team. And they're going to need some serious help to get this right. And this could be dark years ahead for the Texans if they get this wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, very much so. And as well, it's could be dark. I hope it's not dark times for Deshaun Watson, because I just don't want to see in a point where he has to sort of force his way out of there effectively. But I think it might have to happen, because for his career,
he could end up, and we're going to talk about this play later, but he could end up like Matt Stafford, just tied to a bad franchise for a long time.
Sorry, I was reading something else. So the deciding panel for whoever they decide to hire is, and I downplayed him, he's not VP of football ops, he's the executive VP of football ops, Jack Easterby. The search firm, Korn Ferry, and an advisory panel which includes Tony Dungy, Jimmy Johnson, and Andre Johnson.
Oh, dear hell.
And then you've got the ownership as well, who probably have a say. So you're never going to come to consensus, which means you're always going to hire the wrong person.
Well, there's a bit too many cooks.
Yeah,
they don't make the playoffs. So the 1-15 Jags lost 28-14 to the 11-5 Colts. So Colts make the playoffs.
Yeah, they got a big helping hand from the Dolphins being terrible, and then they took care of business anyway. Eventually, Jacksonville weren't dreadful in this game, but Jonathan Taylor basically put them to bed in this one. Jacksonville had nothing to play for other than pride, which it did look like they were demonstrating for a while. And this may have been Matt Glennon's best performance. It might have been his best performance of the season. But the team is just dead in the water. Everyone's saying, oh, well, they'll be all right when they've got Trevor Lawrence. No. They need so much more. One victory. They are that close to being the 0-16 Browns, the 0-16 Lions. Those teams took a minimum of 3 years, like we said, to recover. This team isn't competitive next season.
No. But I think they accept that. What they have got, yes, they'll very, very likely pick Trevor Lawrence, but they've also got another first-round pick. They've got a whole load of second-round picks. They've got 80-odd million in cap space. They've sacked Doug Marrone. He's gone. I kind of feel for him a little bit, because this team does look like it. Yeah, I mean, he's not done brilliantly, but this team has always performed as well as they possibly can. I don't think it's a very good thing.
How many games have the Jags won in the last decade, regular season games?
36.
44, but close enough.
50.
4.4 games a season.
Yeah, and that's not just down to Doug Marrone.
It's not just down to Doug Marrone. He had the best record out of anyone for 1 year. But he couldn't keep it going. He became part of the problem, not part of the solution.
But then again, this is back to my point around the Texans, where you've got so many people interfering. He's had Tom Coughlin in between him and the ownership and the GM. Like they need. And to be fair to Shad Khan, it looks like they're going this way of actually hitting the refresh button. They got rid of the GM, they got rid of the head coach. They know they've got the top pick, so they're going to have a franchise quarterback. They can build around that. I think the expectation is, they're not going to be that great next year. That's fine. It's if they're good 3, 4, 5 years time, that's progress. I don't think you can, and we're seeing it with the Bengals. I don't think you can just slot in a top quarterback and expect to suddenly go into the playoffs next year. If they win 5 games next year, that's a good result.
Yeah, I agree. It certainly is. Jonathan Taylor has been brilliant for the Colts in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
I don't have his stats from the first half, but it was bad the first half of the season. But
yeah, it wasn't great. He's completely turned it around. He looks like a feature back now.
Yeah, certainly does.
Next year they've got Marlon Mack to come back.
Marlon Mack will return, and that's a good backfield.
Yeah.
The question is going to be for the Colts, regardless of where the playoffs go, who's under centre?
Good question.
Because it looks like the end of the road for Phillip Rivers. Some people will be cheering that on, some will not. But they're not tied to him for next year.
No.
it seems unlikely that Jacoby Brissett resumes the starter role. He's been relegated. Why would you bring him back? So where do they go? It seems an odd one.
So, there's lots out there.
In the off-season, the Colts gave up their first-round pick to fill a massive need that they had, and they brought in DeForest Buckner.
Yes.
I could see them giving a first-round pick to Philadelphia and reunited Frank Reich and Carson Wentz.
It makes sense if they could make the money work, but it's a lot.
They've got some decent caps. They've got decent cap space, though.
Yes,
they're not paying a big quarterback at the moment, are they?
No,
it's the dead space that it would leave on the Eagles that's the problem. They're basically going to have to formulate a plan whereby they send money somehow to the Eagles. It's $40-odd million in dead space if Wentz leaves. That's a lot of money.
But they'll figure something out. They've got $65 million in cap space going into next year. I don't know how, but fair play to them. I mean,
and I don't really like him, but I think it's the right move for Wentz. I think Frank Reich, by far his best season was with Frank Reich. That was his nearly MVP year when he got injured. Yeah. So I think they should both sides be making this work. But then it is going to be the end of the road for Philip Rivers. He won't move to another team, I don't think.
He's already said if he's not with the Colts next year, he'll retire.
And yeah, he's had some up and down games. And yes, I texted the group when he threw his standard interception in the end zone. But he has got the job done. He has taken the Colts to the playoff. They'd only been, we said, in the last 7 or 8 years, they'd only been twice. I think the last time they went was 2016. So he's got the job done. You can't fault that.
I think it will get him in the Hall of Fame as well. Second team to the playoffs.
Yeah, not many quarterbacks do it. So I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting one. I know we have a lot of Philip Rivers-based debate, but I think he's done as good a job as we could have thought. If you'd have told me that they were going to get 11-5 with this team, I'd have said that they should snap your hand off for that.
I did see a stat, though, that Justin Herbert's had more rushing touchdowns for the Colts than Philip Rivers had in his career.
Yes. Yeah.
How many talented Rivers rushed this year?
I think he had 3. Or
One.
Yeah.
He ran for 3 yards.
3 yards.
That's fair enough.
So, yeah. And, I think any quarterback would want, at the moment, to go to, well, not anyone, but most quarterbacks would want to go to the Colts just to have that line in front of you.
Yeah.
If you can get some weapons as well, then that is a great team. And we'll see. So,
John, Rodrigo Blankenship as well, most points by a rookie kicker in Colts history. I know you're a fan.
Huge fan.
He actually left a couple on the field as well. He missed a couple, but there you go. Thought he deserved a mention.
My offensive rookie of the year. Okay, Ravens 11-5, 38. Bengals 4-11-1, 3. Bengals' winning streak comes to a clattering halt. Ravens coming into the playoffs looking strong.
They won 4 out of 4 to come into the playoffs, or 5 out of 5 coming into the playoffs. Gary's back off. He's had enough. Look, this if the Bills are the most on form team, if you like, with 7 out of 8 wins or 6 out of 7 wins coming in, this Ravens team aren't far behind. They finished with the best points differential in the NFL. Their quarterback just rushed for like 1,000,000 yards. J.K. Dobbins is in form. Gus Edwards is in form. The wide receiver group is back to doing its job after falling apart midway through the season. Lamar Jackson's throwing passes that look like Pat Mahomes. There aren't a lot of weaknesses. You'll struggle to find me a weakness on this Ravens team right now.
No, I can't.
No, I can't either.
Of the 11-5 teams, they are the best of the 11-5 teams.
Here we got Colts, Browns, Titans, Tampa.
I think they have the most. So I do look forward to them.
So
going out.
This is the problem. Last year they flopped massively against the Titans in the playoffs. I think this is the revenge game. I think the Ravens are just too good offensively, and I can't see the Titans defense keeping up. And again, cover it at the end. That's fine. More importantly, this was the statement game from the Ravens. They didn't need to crush Cincinnati. It was an easy game, but they were making the point that we are this much better and we deserve every accolade we can get going into the playoffs. And they did it. They comfortably, 38-3 is a bigger pounding as you will get in this league.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good team going up against a bad team with a bad quarterback and a bad defense. I think we've said this throughout the season. The Bengals need to sort their offensive line out so they can get Joe Burrow back, protect him, and then sort out the defense. On the other side of the ball, Ravens rushing for 404 yards in total.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins.
Record,
J.K. Dobbins, I think he's making a late shout for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he scored a touchdown in the last
nine touchdowns.
But he's doing it consistently as well. I think he's looking like being a top 10 fantasy pickup next year. Lamar Jackson, first quarterback to go for 1,000 yards rushing in 2 seasons in a row. They don't have to pass the ball, but even when they did, he did all right. There's some passes which were into tight windows, which looked good, but they can keep up that rushing attack. And it's not just J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards is playing well this year. For
me, the really important thing is, so what do they finish on? 11-5.
Yeah.
That's still a pretty good record, isn't it? 11-5.
Good record.
Yeah. A lot of times that would be seen as a very good season. But the Browns also got 11-5. The Steelers got 12-4. So one of the toughest divisions in football in the end, as it turned out. And the Ravens had quite a tough schedule as well throughout the season, And I think, if I'm honest, it's quite good to see the Ravens lose and then figure out how to win in different ways.
Yes.
You may well see the benefits of a 11-5 season rather than a 13-3 season in the playoffs. I think if they get over the first hurdle, then they're very dangerous.
I would rather be in the Bills and the Ravens position coming into the playoffs on form like this than I would perhaps the Steelers, who they've had a bad end to the year. We mentioned the Chiefs who have not struggled through games, but they haven't seemingly been confident enough through games. I think they'll be fine.
38-3 results.
Yeah, exactly. Or, and you can name a number of even the Colts or Titans, who I think
Seahawks, Rams,
yeah. Those teams who look a bit tired.
Form should count for something.
Form does count because it gives confidence and momentum. You get that. So I'd rather be in their position going into. You could. It's just going to be next week. I think it's going to be a really good game between the Ravens and the Titans. I think it's going to be an absolute slugfest. Looking forward to it.
Marcus Peters had his 31st interception in this game. It was his 31st interception since his drafting in 2015, which is the most by anyone since he was drafted. He gets forgotten at times because he disappears for weeks on end.
Yeah,
but he is a difference maker. If he's on form against the Titans, this game's done. Because this defence will be so much better than what the Titans can put out.
Don't people try and forget him because he's an arsehole?
Yeah, that's true.
That is the reason why we sometimes forget you.
The other difference maker... Did not see that one coming. The other difference maker on this team is Patrick Queen, the rookie linebacker. Last year, I think the Titans probably won because they literally they had nothing to stop Derrick Henry. I think Patrick Queen versus Derrick Henry is something to watch next week.
Did you see what Brandon Allen's stats were in this game, anyone?
I did. I've got him in front of me.
6 of 21 for 48 yards.
Yeah, it's one of those times where his rating would have been better if he just threw the ball into the ground 6 times or 21 times.
And we were saying, he's not been terrible considering what he's had to work with, but this was as grisly as it gets.
Yeah. It's just
Zach Taylor's job is safe, though, I gather.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely be back. So fair enough. The Bengals trying to stick with what they think is the right plan, and you can't fault them for that.
No, I agree. Keeping,
I might.
Say, you will.
Yeah, it's
consistency is king.
But...
We saw progress at the start of this year compared to last year with Joe Burrow, and they've been hampered by a huge injury. Zach Taylor doesn't worry me. The one thing that worries me is the front office and the scouting department for this team, and it's always been terrible. The Bengals spend the least on scouting out of all 32 teams, and sometimes it shows.
It can't be that hard. Pick as many of the best O-line players as you can get your hands on in the first 3 rounds.
True, but then it's figuring out which ones are good.
Can someone pay me $250,000 now, please?
Well, part of the problems of picking a load of O-linemen is you also have a horrible O-line coach at the Bengals.
Yeah.
So you can have all the talent in the world if you're just going to make them worse, which is what that guy does. But let's move on. Chargers 38, Chiefs 21. So Chargers finished 7-9, Chiefs finished 14-2.
How do you want to approach this one? Are we coming from the angle of the Chiefs rested everybody? Chad Henne started his first game in 6 years, and it was a nothing game for the Chiefs, who are now completely fit going into the postseason. Or do you want to come at it from Anthony Lynn just went 7-9 and got the sack?
I think what you've said about the Chiefs is all we need to say about the Chiefs, effectively.
It was
they rested all their players. They lost. Doesn't matter. Basically, they've got a 2 week bye. A lot of them. Chargers. Yeah, Anthony Lynn's gone.
For me, it's the right move. He finishes something like 33-31.
Yeah, he's not far off. Yeah,
you know, which is it's not often that a coach gets let go with a winning record, but they just haven't looked like a team for most of this season.
My only reservation is that Herbert has done extremely well under Anthony Lynn, and I'm not sure I wouldn't have let that play out for another 6 or 7 games next year. That's just if he's got a connection with a young quarterback that's going to be that good, why don't you just see how that next season starts?
I think that's fair. It will all depend on who they bring in to replace him. If they get the coaching hire wrong, we're all going to sit here and go, that's not better than Anthony Lynn. But if they get it right, then maybe. There's a lot to not like about Anthony Lynn. His clock management, his end of game management, if you like, is the worst in the league by a mile. So I don't know. It seems harsh. Maybe it's recency bias because they won this game. They weren't terrible last week. And like I say, Herbert's put up 31 touchdowns. The most
you wanted him sacked about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm sticking with it. I don't rate him as a good enough coach, but the recency bias will tell you that maybe he could have had another year.
It's just Herbert seems quite happy. He's settled into that team very well. That happened in week 2 or whatever it was. And the season could have been a complete bust. And I think 7-9 isn't a complete bust. Moving on from the franchise quarterback they've had for about 16 years or whatever. It's a big change for the Chargers.
Anthony Lynn's fate was decided 4 or 5 weeks ago when we were calling for it because they've won their last 4 games of the season. But they'd already decided that he was gone.
I think recency bias does have a massive impact. I think I'd point you to the Falcons last year, who were terrible up until the end of the year, and the Falcons decided to keep Dan Quinn, and it just didn't work. I think
Adam Gase at the Jets as well.
Adam Gase at the Jets, great example. I think you got to look at the whole. You have to look at the whole piece, and I don't think Anthony Lynn has been terrible as an overall coach. I think that you're right, Griff. I think he's got certain factors to his skill set which just aren't good. I also think the difference between the Chargers and the Falcons last year is that the Falcons have got an established quarterback, whereas the Chargers have got Justin Herbert on a rookie contract, and they've got a lot of talent around him on both sides of the ball. So I think the defense is also pretty decent when Derwin James comes back. So you don't want to waste another year of a rookie contract where you could be building towards a Super Bowl in 3 years' time whilst he's still on that rookie contract.
It's true. Austin Eckler surpassed LaDainian Tomlinson for the most receiving touchdowns by a running back in Chargers history. That is fairly impressive. He had 15 receiving touchdowns this season. I mean, that's good going. They are set on offense. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, they are set.
Mm-hmm.
But they just need to be a better run team, and they're competitive.
Mm.
Hunter Henry hits free agency this year.
Hunter Henry does, yeah.
He does, and really, I think they should be trying to keep him. I think I'm not sure you're going to pick up something better. Tight ends are notoriously bad coming out of the draft for a year, and all young quarterbacks need a good tight end, so they should be trying to keep him.
As long as he's not too expensive, he is fragile. Still.
Or you could try and go and get Count Njoku. He's not happy really at the Browns.
Yeah.
Not getting enough game time.
No, that's very true. No, I'd say that's a similar talent level. Yeah, that seems
But
fair.
yeah, I think for Lynn, I think it's they lost a lot of games this year by small margins. And actually, some of them were down to bad calls at the end. There were games where the offense had the ball at the end and just didn't look like they knew what they were doing.
It's been like that for a few years, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I know. And it's it.
I was going to say San Diego in LA, but it's like there's been a missed kick away. Yeah.
And, you know, it is probably time for a change. I feel like of the people fired, Anthony Lynn's the harshest done by this season. Agree. But yeah. Now, anyway, let's move on to another firing. This time, a bit more expected.
I didn't expect Bill Belichick to go.
Jets 14, Patriots 28. The Adam Gase era is over in New York.
I think every Jets fan breathes a sigh of relief when that announcement got made.
It depends who comes in, though, doesn't it?
No.
They can't be worse, can they? Unless they bring Rich Kotite back from the 90s. Then,
I think even he might be better than that.
I can't see they can make a worse hiring.
Jeff Fisher?
He needs to get you 8-8.
The Jets would kill for 8-8 right now.
Yeah, 2-14 is not good. What did they go last year? They went 8-8 last year, didn't they? So that's 10-22 in 2 seasons is not good, is it?
No,
offensive genius. There's so much for the Jets to decide. The first thing is, are you keeping Sam Darnold? Is he your quarterback?
I don't think they will.
You don't think they will?
I think they should, but I don't think they will. I think they're done with him. New coach, new quarterback.
I think you may well be right, but I'm not sure it's the right move. I think he's still extremely talented and just needs to be better utilised.
I agree, which is why I want him at the Niners.
Yeah, you'd take him at the Niners. I'd take him.
Happily take him at the Niners. Yeah. I completely agree. I think they will get rid of him, but I think they should keep him. I think you're picking second in the draft, but actually because of the quarterbacks coming out into the draft this year, you could get a massive load of picks by trading down because there's actually the quarterback on this team, we all agree, has got talent. But there's a lot of other needs on this team which they could then fill with all those picks. So it makes more sense to keep him, get a load of talent back into the building, which he can then work with, and move on. But otherwise, the Jets are just that kind of organisation where they'll make the wrong decision no matter what decision they make.
Yeah. If you think it's a sensible thing to do, the Jets won't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's how much this isn't on Sam Darnold. In Darnold's first 3 career starts against the Patriots, the combined score is 99-17 in favour of the Patriots. And that just tells you the Jets don't have a defence or a coach capable of keeping up on offence. That's not all Darnold.
They scored 14 this weekend. What?
Yeah, I know.
What the fuck?
That's just the stats. I think Cam did just enough to showcase some talent, but he won't be back with the Patriots next year. I can't see that. And then really, it feels a bit like he's going to be waiting to see who gets injured in the preseason and then steps in. He's going to be that guy because he's just not good enough. Let's not be tainted by recency bias and think he did any good.
I'm not even sure he'll be that guy anymore. Jameis has sat out a year. Teddy Bridgewater's likely to be available as well. I think Cam's behind both of those guys.
I would say you're probably right. He just doesn't look like a quarterback anymore.
I can see a retirement coming.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because I don't think he's the type of guy that would want to be a backup quarterback.
No.
I think you're right. I think he's absolutely the guy who will swoon in at the last minute when your starting quarterback has been knocked out with a broken leg. That's what he is. I can't imagine him being a backup quarterback.
Where do the Patriots go next? There are so many enormous holes. I sent my wish list to John and Jim earlier, and now I know it's not realistic, but I was basically saying with the amount of cap space they're going to have, you go out, you chase Matt Stafford, you chase Zach Ertz because you need a tight end. Devin Asiani scored the only tight end touchdown by a Patriot since 2019. And we used to be all about the tight end. And you need 2 wide receivers.
You don't get Zach Ertz. You get Hunter Henry if you've got that cap space. Zach Ertz is getting on a bit, isn't he?
Yeah, but this isn't Bill Belichick building for 5 years. This is Bill Belichick building for 3 at most. But either way, I'd take either one of those. But the point is, you need a quarterback, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. The running back situation is the only good thing about this team. And James White and Rex Burkhead are both free agents.
You've got to worry about the offensive line as well. Like Joe Tooney is potentially on his way out.
I think they need to give him the money. The rest of the line generally back. And is it Isaiah Wynn will be back? And so the line can be good, the running game can be good, but everything else on offense. Don't forget the defense gets 8 players back from the COVID list. And all right, Gilmore might go because he's expensive, but JC Jackson's been brilliant this year. So
you need Dante Hightower back.
Yeah, we do.
He's like that leader of the defense. My one big concern about that is, yes, you get all those players back. They went into the COVID or sitting out the season because of COVID so quickly. I wonder how much of it is down to COVID and how much of it is down to, do you know what? We just don't want to play for Bill anymore. Like, we're tired of it. We need a break.
I think it might be the other way. I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick looked at this season and said, well, we're not much up for this, but we can have a load of fit players come back. Because they were the only team that did this. It's like he told them, pick now and stick to it.
Do you know what, right? Everyone's talking about that plan of Bill's, this secret plan. And then obviously Brady, like there's the stat of the Bills' record without Brady, which isn't great, and Brady's record with or without Bill, which is slightly superior.
Yeah.
And there's people starting to ask the question now, was it the plan or was it just Brady? Was it ever about Bill? I'm sure it was about Bill, don't get me wrong, but how much of it has been about the greatness of Brady?
I think that's a fair comment, but this is what I'll point to. The squad had basically run out of wiggle room to stay competitive. We know this is a thing. This is the cycle of the NFL, and we've staved it off for the best part of 20 years. Brady was not good last year on a team starting to come devoid of talent. And if Brady had played on the Patriots this season, the record would be no better. He'd have got crushed. Cam ran for like 10 touchdowns. So I think it's I think this needs to be a 3-year comparison. If Brady's won 3 times as many games as Belichick after 3 years, then that's fair. But at the moment, Belichick's the one shackled to the corpse of what the Patriots were, and Brady's gone to a much better situation.
Without Brady, Belichick's under 500 with the Patriots.
Yeah, fine, but still. Come on now.
77% with Brady, under 500 without.
Yeah, no one's saying he's not a great player.
Yeah, I also think if you take your starting quarterback away from any team, most coaches are going to struggle.
Yeah.
Apart from Sean Payton, apparently.
So I've said my wish list, and we'll get into it more in the off-season, but I know you guys couldn't care less about what happens to the Patriots, but it'll be interesting to see how much of the rebuild can be done in one off-season, because I don't think it'll be much.
It can't be done.
And I've said all along, I think they'll be just as bad next year. But it'll be interesting to see, because Bill's only got a finite amount of time left.
Well, Paul's suggestion is that he's tanking the ship before he leaves, because
would be funny.
Which would be funny. But yeah, we'll see. It's. I think that's as much as we need to say. I think Griff sent me his wish list. I think maybe next week we might play a game of who be the GM. But let's see. Okay, last game, AFC, Raiders 32, Broncos 31. So Raiders finished 8-8, Broncos 5-11, and of course for the Broncos,
that wraps up the AFC.
Elway's moved upstairs.
Yeah, Elway's promoted himself for being terrible, so he can't be fired.
Well, no, his contract expires next year, so he can't be fired. But there is the suggestion now that he's gone upstairs so that they can let go of him more quietly.
Is he mates with Donald Trump?
Probably.
He's this I don't know if Elway's ever made a phone call about looking for votes or anything, but
probably made a phone call about looking for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be just as useless, wouldn't it? But that Elway is particularly. He seems happy to get involved with the new GM. He's behind Drew Lock going forward, which remains to be seen whether that is the answer for Broncos.
Come on now. There's four of us.
It's not the answer. Drew Lock shit.
Nobody on here thinks that Drew Lock is the answer at quarterback, do they? Nobody. He's a good enough backup. He'll go around the league a few times as a backup, but he's closer to Case Keenum than he is to any viable starting quarterback. I think that's a reasonable thing to say, and that's fine. But he's not going to win you a Super Bowl. He's not going to get you into the postseason, is he?
You know what, though? He probably had a slightly better day than Derek Carr. Just on the stat line, Carr,
it wasn't
24-38, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Drew Lock, 25-41, 339, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah,
as far as
Carr's worst performance of the season, to be fair.
The problem with Drew Lock is that he can sometimes look like an okay quarterback or a good quarterback, but he just lacks consistency. But I don't think there's anything on the Broncos team which would point to why he lacks consistency other than Drew Lock. He's got a lot of good wide receivers around him. He's got a good running game. The offensive line's not brilliant, but it's certainly improved over the last couple of years. The defense, I think, is still good as well. So it just leaves that one little ickle problem of actually Drew Lock, you're not good enough.
The new GM first job is get Justin Simmons and Von Miller re-signed.
Yeah.
And then everything else can be sorted out from that. Remember, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since they made the Super Bowl.
If we're talking about Von Miller, have you seen the text messages that have come out?
I haven't seen it. I've heard that there's a.
Oh, it's horrific! It's horrific.
Why? What's he done?
So basically, he has impregnated his lady friend. And after that, decided that was a bad idea and started saying some pretty hideous stuff, which I won't repeat, but around her losing the baby and the biggest mistake of his life and stuff like that. So it is pretty horrific stuff. So whether the NFL will look at it, I'm not sure, but it's not something that they will want to be associated with.
Yeah, but is it a text message or was it in social media?
It was a text message that is now on social media.
But that's not necessarily his fault, is it? He's just got an arsehole of a friend who's released it. So I'm not sure how... Yeah, you shouldn't be saying those things. Absolutely not. As a decent human being, you should not say those things. But he said it in private. He didn't mean for that to be for public consumption.
Well, I don't think he said it to a friend. I think he said it to the prospective mother of his child.
Ex-fiancé.
Bloody stupid then, isn't it?
Yeah, no.
I think
the messages. Wow, I've just seen they are not nice.
I haven't looked, and I will wait and look afterwards. But I would say this: I think it's probably a massive lapse of judgment during a stressful time, and I don't doubt that an NFL player would take an aggressive tone to something they don't like because they're all basically built to be aggressive. So it doesn't come across correctly. I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL do discipline it in some way, if it's threatening, if it's deemed as threatening. But, bring everybody's private life in. It's a bit like a couple of years ago, we used to have this debate about whether or not players are role models or not. And you guys all say yes. And I say, well, that's not what they sign up for. It isn't what he signed up for.
It's exactly what they sign up for.
No, it's not.
As soon as you get paid... It's you don't it's not like you sign up for a contract. Oh yeah. By the way, I don't want to be a role model. Well then great, go live under a fucking rock. Don't be in the NFL. If you don't want your public life to be scrutinised, don't have a public life.
There are plenty of sports stars who have managed to keep their private life in private. I always think of Paul Scholes, the Man United footballer. He never wanted to do press. Never wanted to be in front of the camera, just wanted to play football. Now he does more press randomly enough as it is. But there is the ability. And you look at the rest of the NFL, there are a lot of players there who don't court the press or don't get into trouble or don't appear to be role models. They're role models because they're good players, they're good teammates, they do some good work in the community. And let's not forget, there are a lot of NFL players that do a lot of work in the community. We're coming up to every team nominated their Walter Payton Man of the Year at the moment. That all gets missed because you have a few who flout the rules, want to be seen to be, dancing on other teams' logos just for social media followers, and they're the ones that kind of ruin it for a vast majority of footballers who are generally just want to play football and be in and be on the pitch and win Super Bowls. Yeah, they don't want to be role models, but they are, just because that's what their profession dictates them to be.
But I just sent you the text messages.
I've read them, and I just think that's two people who genuinely don't like each other anymore, and that's all that is.
Yeah.
It's not good language, but it's not. You wouldn't expect anything any different from somebody whose job is to go out there and beat people up. That's all I'm saying.
Well, anyway,
Mike Griffin defends potential baby murderer on podcast.
Yeah, effectively.
You've done worse.
You've done worse. But no, it's not. It's not a good look. It's not a good look at all.
It was still a private text conversation, and she's released it. So, yeah, he shouldn't absolutely not have said those things. But like, it's not. He didn't put it on social media. He didn't put it in the public foray. It's happened. It's come out. And
I don't.
Whatever.
Just don't say that sort of shit. You know.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
You know, even in private, I don't care. You know, there's a way to do things. And he's a dick, quite frankly.
I completely agree with you, but for that reason, I don't think that the NFL will get involved.
I don't think they will, but it's a bad look. But yeah, we'll leave it there. We need predictions.
Yeah.
So we have the games this weekend. So in the AFC, we've got Colts, Bills. Who's taking the Colts? Who's taking the Bills on this one?
Oh, come on
Bills.
now. The Colts haven't got a chance. This
Bills
is
all the way.
A team that is snowballing on offense, and Philip Rivers will toss 2 or 3 interceptions trying to keep up. It's the Bills all the way, and it's probably a sad end for Philip Rivers, but that's what will happen.
I mean, could Philip Rivers have any other type of end? Sunday, Ravens, Titans.
I'm taking the Ravens. Maybe I'll be the first one to do that, but I'm taking the Ravens because if you look at the teams on offense, they're very, very similar. On defense, the Titans don't match up.
Yeah, defense wins championships, and Tennessee haven't got one, so I'm going with the Ravens.
I am going with the King Henry Titans. I think it'll be very close, but I think it's the fact the Ravens are away. Titans got home advantage.
Do you know what? I'm gonna go with the Ravens. And I think sneakily, if they get past this first game, I think this Gary suggested, I think they then beat the Chiefs the week after. But then finally, the grudge match. It's Browns Steelers again.
Come on now. I'm in unison on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Steelers suck. Do you know what? Just to be different, I'm going to go with the Browns because I don't like the Steelers. They always let you down in the playoffs. Browns to then lose to the Bills next week.
I want the Browns to win, but they're just not going to. I'd quite happily see a Browns playoff run. I think that'd be really entertaining, but it's just not going to happen. I just can't see them beating a full strength Steelers team. Not going to happen.
Well, we'll leave it there, and we'll come back with the NFC. So, see you in a minute.